Welcome back to another episode of the Cheap Property Spain video podcast. On today's episode, I speak with Alejandro Cano of Lexidy, a law firm based in Barcelona that specializes in helping expats buy real estate, obtain visas, and a lot more. Alejandro is originally from El Salvador, but moved to Spain to practice real estate law after obtaining a master's degree in France. As you'll see, he's incredibly knowledgeable and very passionate about all things real estate law. So this interview is truly a deep dive into the home buying process in Spain. We cover literally every detail, the steps involved, things to watch out for, fees, taxes, and even how to buy a property without ever stepping foot in the country. So if you're seriously considering buying a home in Spain in the next few years, this is the episode for you. Enjoy. I would love it if we could start with the basics. You know, in your own words, kind of what are the steps to buying a home in Spain?
All right, the steps. So whenever you're looking for property in Spain, so all the viewers right now, they're like, okay, I'm interested in buying a property in Spain, right? What should I do? Is the first step is start looking for a property. Idealista might not be the best place, even though lots of people think that. For example, you, Chris, you can help them with this. And because what we need is for our clients to look for the property first, and at least to have an idea of the area that they're looking for. Because if they just have the broad idea of like, hey, I want to move to Spain, well, Spain is big. Not as big as other countries, but it's big, you know. So we would like for the clients to at least have, okay, I want to move to Catalonia. That gives us like, okay, they want to move over here. It's just a couple of cities in Catalonia. So we can put you in contact with a couple of real estate agents, such as yourself, that you can help them with this. And once they find the property, the only thing that we ask is like, for example, for the client to submit the formal offer for this property. So these are the first steps. Once the formal offer has been submitted, what we ask is to not sign anything. It goes over here. Some real estate agents, what they do is they try to take advantage, and I'm talking about especially the Spanish real estate agents. They try to take advantage of expats, which is Lexidy's specialty. So what they try to do is like, oh, you know what? He's an expat. He doesn't speak the language, so we're just gonna make him sign this contract, and we're just gonna make him sign it in Spanish. And so my advice is in these steps, do not sign anything. Just contact us. I believe Chris will leave you my contact details. Sorry about that. My contact details after this is over, in the middle of somewhere over there. What we do is we contact them and we handle the entire communication for you. So the steps, I'm just gonna summarize everything so that we can keep moving. Is first you find the property, then you have the reserve contract. Fairly simple contract, this 10 to 15 days contract. After this contract expires, you go ahead. Well, in the meantime, you're doing the due diligence. We're doing it. Next step is the Arras contract. You might know it as the deposit contract, where you pay 10% approximately. 10% is the usual amount we recommend. It's easier to claim it back in case something happens. And then we go to the final SPA, the sales and purchase agreement. This is a term that you will probably hear me say along like whenever we continue. So SPA is a sales and purchase agreement. Simple as that. So these are the 5 basic steps. Of course, there's many behind the curtain, and I believe we're going to talk about some of them right now.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So at its basic level, it's pretty similar to buying a property in the United States or almost in any other Western country. What are some of the, I guess, early stage complications? You kind of hinted at it, like with, if you're working with like an unknown real estate agent or something, like you might easily get taken advantage of. What are some of the kind of things to look out for in those early stages?
So what we look, and this is why we recommend for us to start right at the beginning. Us like Lexidy, your lawyers, to start right at the beginning, because whenever we offer to go ahead with a reserve contract, that is where we ask the 10 to 15 days, right? In this 10 to 15 days, there's many things happening at the same time. For example, first thing, well, we're drafting the reserve contract. Second thing, we start with the due diligence. Now, in the due diligence, this is the tricky part because, for example, some buildings over here in Spain, every building here in Spain that is over 45 years old needs an ITE, ITE. What is this? It's the technical inspection for the building that is performed by the city hall. I mean, not by the city hall per se, but it's the city hall who gives you a short list of, okay, guys, community of neighbors, you want to do an ITE because your building already hit the 45-year mark. This is a short list of architects that you may use. And that's it. It's a closed list. So it's not like they can go out of this, because in this short list are some architects that, well, all of these architects are trusted by the town hall or city hall, right? So what happens in this ITE, the ITE, is that they determine what needs to be repaired and in what period of time. For example, typical thing that happens after 45 years, is the facade. The facade of the building needs to be restored. So this, depending on the building, of course, it can be up to 300,000 euros to repair it. Let's say it's only 10 neighbors living in this building. Now you do the math. It's not that cheap, right? So it's this 300,000 euros divided by 10 neighbors. That what happens a lot in Spain, and this is why we always ask for these 10 to 15 days, is to be very careful, because some sellers, what they do is like, okay, you know what? Here comes the ITE moment. So right now, let's see. Oh, the ITE. Wow, I need to pay 300K for the facade. Well, I guess this is the moment for me to sell. And this happens very, very often, unfortunately. So this is something that we need to avoid. And again, this is something that, for example, everyone would say that, oh yeah, but well, according to the law, you cannot sell with any charges, encumbrances, liens, whatever. Yeah, that's right. But what happens? This ITE, it's not registered anywhere but the town hall. So, or the community of neighbors. There you go. So
yeah, that's a perfect example of something that I've done so many hours of research on, buying properties in Spain, and I've never seen anybody talk about the ITE before, and how that's a great example of something that if you don't do this every day, there's no way you would even know about that.
Yeah, exactly. So you have no idea the amount of purchases that they either break up because we find this out in the due diligence period, and we're like, okay, Mr. Seller, we know what you're hiding. There's a 300K debt, or there will be, because sometimes in the ITE, what it says is like, okay, community of neighbors, we give you 5 years to repair this. Because of course, 300K, you're not gonna just get them overnight, right? So the town hall can give you 5 years, for example. It's like by 2027, you need to have this repaired. So it's nowhere. So what we do is like, okay, we read the ITE. It's like a 98-page report. Yeah, almost 100 pages report that we go through it. We read and we're like, okay, there's this that needs to be repaired by 2027. So we go to Mr. Seller and it's like, okay, we know that this will have to be paid by 2027. So how can we proceed? Either we discount this from the purchase price. How do we proceed? And sometimes, well, they're like, well, if you don't find it, you found out, but maybe the next one will not. So I'll take my chances. And unfortunately, that happens. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other large things that you're looking out for specifically during the due diligence process?
Yes. Okay. So what happens in the due diligence process? So we're investigating not only with the community of neighbors, we're also doing it with the town hall. We're doing it with the land registry, with the cadastral office, and that's it. These 4 entities, let's call them. Mm-hmm. So while we're doing the research with this, what we highly recommend, because, okay, in Spain, it's not mandatory, legally speaking, for a technical survey to be performed over the property. It is not. So Even though it's not mandatory, we always highly recommend for a technical survey to be performed over this property. Now, Lexidy, us, we do collaborate with architects all across Spain. So you can tell me that, yeah, but Alejandro, I don't know any architects around there because I'm from the US. He's like, don't worry. We actually got a network of architects down south, over here in Madrid. So we got architects literally everywhere in Spain. The most important thing about architects, it's not the price, it's that you trust them. Because, okay, so there's two sides of every purchase. The legal aspect, that of course, when you hire a law firm, us, Lexidy, we make sure that everything is okay legally speaking. But structurally speaking, I can tell you that I've only been to probably 3 properties out of hundreds or close to thousands that I've helped my clients to purchase. So we don't know if the building is falling apart. We will never know. And ever since COVID, it's very, very popular that some clients, they don't even come to Spain and they simply go like, Alejandro, you know what? I trust you. I trust your law firm. Just handle everything and just save my keys. And whenever I'm in Barcelona, I'm just going to go and collect the keys. I wish I could show you a picture of we have a safe deposit over here. The amount of keys we have from all these clients that they're like, yeah, Alejandro, you know what? I'll be in Barcelona probably by 2024. So just keep the keys over there.
Wow. So it's actually one of my questions that I've had for you. I guess now the short answer is yes. But so it sounds like someone can not step foot in Spain at all and still purchase a property here.
Yeah, that is correct.
Wow. So how does that process work?
Okay, so how does that work is very simple, actually. So what we do is, as long as the country is part of the Hague Convention, it's easier. It's not that if the country it's not, it's impossible, but if it's part of the Hague Convention, it makes things easier. Why? Because you would have the apostille stamp. Now, with the apostille stamp, and I'm going to give you 2 scenarios, the one with, the one without. Let's use the US as the one with. The one part of the Hague Convention. So a country that is part of the Hague Convention, such as the US, it's easier to just go to a public notary. Like, we draft the power of attorney. We do absolutely everything. We draft it. We make sure that everything is drafted how it should be, because all the clauses that we have in our power of attorney, we have checked with the tax agency in Spain. We have checked with the town halls in Spain, like the city or town halls, whatever you want to call them. We have checked with the banks in Spain. So we have checked with all these different entities just to make sure that the power of attorney, we're not going to go there one day and they're going to be like, oh, this clause doesn't make any sense. Because one thing about a power of attorney is that you can draft it however you like. There's no specific way, let's say. There's not like, of course, there are like, there's like a framework where you can work around, but how you draft it, it's more like your style. So what we did is we checked with all these different entities that Lexidy uses this power of attorney at, and we made sure that they will accept all of these clauses. So we draft the power of attorney for you. You in the US, you would contact a public notary, which is basically half of the population. And so after that, you just ask that same person, the public notary, to just how to apostille this document. Now, we can, like, he can provide like a couple of services, like, because there's some agencies that do that for a living, or we can suggest a couple more, like, depends on the country. For example, US, UK, we work a lot with these 2 countries. So, US, UK, Canada, Australia. So these countries, we work so much with them that if we even know people from there, like some sort of collaboration, let's call it. So, or we recommend people from there. So we can tell you like, hey, Chris, you can use this one. They're actually good. They're not too expensive and they're fast. So you apostille the document, takes like a week and a half. Once you receive it, because you will physically send it somewhere, and then once you receive it back, you ship it to us, physically ship it to us. The second that we receive that power of attorney with all of these clauses, of course, the clauses are subject to change. I'm not saying that Lexidy will imply clauses on you or anything. Of course, every clause that you tell me, like, hey, Alejandro, but I don't feel too comfortable in you being able to open a bank account for me. It's like, okay, no worries. I mean, but if you don't want us to be able to open a bank account for you, you would have to come to Spain. Because after you purchase a property, you do need to have a bank account in Spain.
So you need to have a Spanish bank account to be able to purchase a property here?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Okay.
So you do. It's not that you need it for the actual purchase, but you need it post purchase. Like, for example, the utilities. You cannot, and this is something that we've been fighting over and over, but it seems like an impossible fight. You cannot transfer utilities to an international bank account. Not even in Madrid or Barcelona, the two most cosmopolitan cities in Spain. And they go like, well, sorry, we just accept Spanish bank accounts. So then there's no way around it. Unless you have a friend that has a bank account and you'll be transferring. But you see, it's too much trouble. So it's easier if you just grant a power of attorney. We open the bank account for you. We can even make the power of attorney so limited that after we open the bank account, this power of attorney becomes useless. So like we take into account all these little details because, of course, you cannot just, or some people do not fully trust someone that it's on the other side of the world, right? Or at least some people are more cautious, or they just don't like to do it. Some people, they just go like, Alejandro, you know what? You seem trustworthy, so let's go ahead.
Do you also need a NIA number to begin the property purchase process?
To begin, no, you do not. You can start the entire process. You can sign the reserve contract with your passport. We can do the due diligence. You can sign the Arras contract with your passport, and not a problem. The second that you will need your NIA is for actually signing the SPA. So over there again, there's no way around it. You either have a NIA or you have a NIA. If not, it's completely impossible to sign the final SPA. But again, that is not a problem for Lexidy. We can actually obtain an NIE for you in 3 to 6 business days. And this is something that not every firm in Spain can offer.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I know getting a NIA can be, and it has for my fiance, been a huge headache. She finally got one, but even as an EU citizen, it took her a very long time to even just get an appointment to get a NIA number. So
we have some people that they're like, Alejandro, I have an appointment. And I'm like, all right. When's the appointment? Well, 6 months from now. It's like, all right.
Well, I don't think the property is going to be on the market anymore in 6 months. So yeah. Wow.
So what we do is like, don't worry, 3 to 6 business days and we have it. So, And it's not a problem. You don't have to be in Spain. Again, you don't have to.
Great. And so then, so let's see. So you have to, you sign what did you call that first agreement that you have to sign with the seller?
Oh, the reserve contract. I mean, we call it the reserve contract. In Spanish is paga y señal, which it means nothing in English. Like if you do a literal translation, it's like paga y señal. It means nothing. So that's why I decided to just start calling it the reserve contract. It's people understand the basic concept of reserve, which you actually are reserving the property for 10 to 15 days.
Okay. And when you sign that, is any money given to the seller? Like in the US, we call it an earnest money deposit. Is there anything like that exchanged? Okay.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if the property is 100,000 euros or the property is 1 million euros. Normally, in the reserve contract, we offer between 1,000 and 5,000 euros. So why? Because it's going to be easier to claim it back. Some people suggest that it's better to go with the 1% in the reserve contract and then 9% in the Arras contract. So that way you have a complete 10%. This is personal. I prefer for it to be between 1 and 5,000 euros. So that way, if it goes south, it's easier to claim back, I don't know, 1,000 euros rather to be claiming back, I don't know, it could be 10,000 euros, 20,000 euros. It happens a lot. So it's easier to claim a lower amount.
So within those first 2 weeks, Within those first, you said 14 days or so, once you kind of put that initial deposit down, what are you really looking for before proceeding to the next phase of purchasing the property?
Yeah. So exactly what I was saying before. So between the reserve contract and the Arras contract, or let's call it deposit, over here it's called Arras, right? So it's the same. So in this period, what we're doing is the due diligence and the technical survey. So what happens behind the curtain, the due diligence part is this is where we become lawyers/detectives. So because we're like lifting every rock there is, we're looking for every possible debt that the current owner has. We're checking with the town hall. We actually read the last 3 years minutes from the community of neighbors, because there can be some budgets that were approved at, let's say, in 2019, saying that starting from 2022, or from X month in 2022, we're going to start paying X amount for, I don't know, to repair the roof, or I don't know, the facade. So they usually do this. They give like a 3-year heads up to all of the owners, like, hey guys, start saving money, because in 3 years we'll have to start paying a monthly of X amount, and we will pay for the next, I don't know, 10 years or 5 years. So we go ahead and read the last 3 years minutes from the community of neighbors. So yeah, lawyers/detectives/ whatever you want to call us, because we just read and read and read and read, just to find anything. And at the same time, we're checking with the land registry, because most of the properties in Spain, they do have a mortgage. I would say 8 out of every 10 properties that we see, they have a mortgage, not because our clients require one, but because he has a past mortgage, right? So we need to make sure that it is canceled correctly, that the amount is okay, that he has been paying all of these installments. So it's a lot of things that we need to check before making sure that these debts can actually be paid. And if the seller has the money to pay them before, we actually advise for it to be canceled before. If not, we do a retention at the notary. Like, for example, Chris is selling this house that still has a mortgage of, I don't know, 200,000 euros, but the property is 1 million euros. So what you plan to do is grab the cash and then pay this 200K. This is, well, what we always do, and it's suggested to be done this way, is for it to be either for you, Chris, to pay it before, or to do a retention at the notary. That means that you, Chris, will not get the 1 million exactly. You will get the 1 million minus 200.
Right. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. That ensures all the debts are properly paid off.
Correct. And we make sure of that. Like, this is part of what we do in the due diligence. And after, at the moment of the SPA, we make sure that everything is canceled correctly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving forward in the process, then let's say you guys do all your detective work, everything's checking out, the buyer still wants to proceed. What happens next?
Well, what happens next? Well, in the meantime that we're doing the due diligence, the whole back and forth for the Arras is going on, because it's a kind of a big negotiation. For example, in Lexidy, we always give our clients 2 choices. Either you want to be kept in CC of every single email we exchange regarding your case, or, for example, some choose the second option, which is just like, hey, Alejandro, just give me a quick call whenever there's something big that I should know. So whenever the clients, they choose the, I want to be in CC of everything, they go like, wow, well, what are you guys doing over there? Because sometimes for one clause, it can be 30 emails. Because they're suggesting for this clause to be drafted this way. We're like, no, that's not going to work. We want it this way because our client, he's interested in this. So we always, before starting the Arras negotiation, we normally have a quick 10-minute call with the client. Like, hey, all right, Chris, what do you want? What are your expectations? First, when would you like to sign the final SPA? Are you going to purchase this property with a mortgage or not? do you want something to be kept inside the property? For example, some clients, by law, like according to the law, properties need to be like delivered. Let's call it completely empty. But sometimes they get to an agreement where it's like, hey, you know what? Just leave these lamps because I really like them. So we make an inventory. So all of these little things are a big back and forth that it's happening behind the curtains, that if you decide to have the second option, all you know is that something is happening back there, but you're not really aware of what's happening. So this is it. It's the negotiation. So this is happening in the 12 to 15 days between the reserve contract and the Arras contract. After this is done, let's say that we agreed over everything, the technical survey came out to be good. From a legal perspective, everything was okay. So we just go ahead and, all right, let's sign. And we establish a final purchase date, like a maximum purchase date. Why do we do this? Just in case something happens. Like we always, let's say you tell me, hey, Alejandro, you know what? I want to end at least by or you tell me I want to finalize the date on or before the, I don't know, the 15th of April. So I would ask you if we can just stretch a little bit more around like the 20th or the 25th. So we have some margin just in case something happens, because if not, we would have to sign an extension of the contract. And it's something that it's better to avoid. So because sometimes they would not like to do that for whatever reason, even though everything is done digitally nowadays or electronically. Every contract that you sign with Lexidy, reserve contract, Arras contract, you don't have to be in Spain. We have we use a platform, which is that we just upload the document over there. We put both parties, and these two parties can sign the document digitally, and then it does like this digital certificate, which is valid, and it's legally valid everywhere. So you don't have to move anywhere. Like, why wouldn't you want to just sign another one? It depends on the seller, of course.
Of course, always, and how maybe old school they are. So let's say everything goes according to plan, and you get to your closing day. What are all the fees and taxes and sort of things that the buyer should expect to pay on closing day for the property?
Okay, so the buyer would have to pay first the fees, legal fees. So Lexidy, maybe I can share the small table that we have for our fees in case you're interested. I can share it after this is done. So we charge on a percentage basis. And it's 1.3, 1.2, 1.1, and 0.75 for over $1 million. Of course, I'm gonna send it, and maybe you can just put it somewhere over there in a corner. After that, other fees that you need to consider is the architect's fees. Of course, it depends on how many square meters, where is it located. But let's say it goes around like between 600 and 1200, somewhere around there. Of course, if it's like a mansion, I don't know, 3,000 square meters, don't expect for it to be between like 1,200, right? It can go up to like, I don't know, 10,000. It depends. Other fees. Well, the notary fees, they vary, although we estimate that we calculate that it's around 0.2% of the total purchase value, but not every time. It depends on many, many things. So let's say that it varies between 800 and 2,000 euros, around those two numbers. What else? Well, the taxes, of course, the after.
Always.
So whenever you buy a property, over here in Spain, especially. So whenever you're buying a property in Spain, for example, I'm gonna give you the Catalonia example because it's so I'm not gonna start talking about all the comunidades autónomas over here. In Catalonia, it's 10% over the total over the cadastral reference value. So this can either be a little bit higher or a little bit lower than the purchase value. And this is determined. I believe that it's by the cadastral office. So this is something that just changed on the 1st of January. So this is why I'm still not an expert on it. Although, don't worry, I'm not the only one working on it. It's an entire team working for you.
Okay, great. So this is kind of the big tax, right? That is paid whenever someone purchases a property, and you said it's 10% of the value of the property, more or less.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's almost the exact, like before 2022, it was the exact, like it was 10% of the exact purchase value. You're buying for 500K, you're gonna pay 50K taxes. And you have 30 days in order to pay these taxes. This is another thing that we do for you. So again, honestly, if you hire Lexidy, all you have to do is just pick the property. That's it. After that, we handle the rest.
Oh, that's great. Makes it a lot easier.
So, yeah. One more thing is that we also do the registration process. For example, after you're done with the property purchase, we do the registration process at the land registry, and we follow through the entire process that legally takes 30 days. It never does. It always takes around 2 months, a little bit more if we don't call. That we have to be that annoying person that is always calling like, hey, is that already registered? Because some clients, they do have some sort of a rush or they are in a rush because they are applying for the golden visa. So the golden visa is whenever you buy a property over 500K or properties that accumulate, like whenever you add up the purchases, it goes over 500K. Probably in David's episode, they talked about the golden visa. So this is for you people to go and check David's podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually a good point, because I did have a question about sort of how all that works. So you can, if you're not a Spanish citizen or anything, you have no problem buying a property without a visa. Is that correct? Like, or you could basically be here on a tourist visa and own a property and never apply for like the non-lucrative visa or the golden visa or anything?
Yeah, no, we have many clients just like that. For example, from South America, that very common that this happens is they just want to buy a property like a second residence. You just somewhere where they can spend their holidays. So what they do is they don't have an ex, like they just have the passport, their own passport. They're not interested in any visa because they don't need it or they don't want it, and they just buy a property in Spain. They can come with, like, for example, almost I believe that every country from South America, or Central and South America, they can come to Spain for 90 days without a visa. It's the tourist period, let's call it. You don't need anything but the NIE. That's all you need.
Okay, that's great. Well, good. Well, now next big kind of, let's move away now from purchasing a property. I think you've done a great job covering that, and I want to pick your brain a little bit on what are your thoughts on like the Spanish market overall. And I know it's a big country, much bigger than most people think, and it varies so much. Like Galicia is so different from Andalusia, and Valencia is so different than Catalonia even. So what are your thoughts on where is the market in 2022 right now, and how does that vary by region?
Okay, right now, the market, it's starting to calm down, let's call it, because in 2021, it was just, it was crazy. The prices, first of all, they were on the floor. The mortgages, like I would say 9 out of every 10 clients, they didn't even need a mortgage, but our clients were getting mortgages 30 years fixed for 0.85. So, I mean, they were just giving mortgages here and there. So every property was like the one in the market, it was over there for just a couple of weeks, sometimes just a couple of days. So this is incredible. I mean, we don't really like go deep into that part because, well, again, we're real estate law department, so it's more like lawyers working with real estate. But this is what I hear, because of course, while you're in the real estate department, you have many calls with these real estate agents, and you always establish like a typical chit chat. It's like, hey, so how are things? And it's like, well, yeah, the market is crazy, or the market right now is going through the roof. That was more in 2021. Right now in 2022, it's starting to settle down a little bit. Especially not because money is over, right, or because properties are over. No, it's mainly this is my personal opinion. I would say because mortgages are like the interest rate on the mortgages are going up a little bit. It's still very good. Like one of our clients, he just signed a mortgage last week. It was 105, so it's still pretty good, but it's not a 0.85. So it's right. So the market, it's still pretty hot, not as hot as 2021.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So maybe a good time for a new buyer to get in then.
Yeah. Let me see. Oh, you were asking about the different communities. So the comunidades autónomas. It's the hottest ones are always Catalonia. And over in the Galicia area, over there, people just love over there. Then Madrid, and of course down south. I mean, Spain is beautiful. Spain is beautiful. We all know this. This is why you and I came to Spain. It's just beautiful. So it's like expat to expat over here. So all of Spain is beautiful. So I would say, but yeah, Catalonia, Madrid, and around Galicia, País Vasco, over there and like up north is the hot. Well, and down south, everywhere.
And it just depends on which coast do you want. Do you want a little bit of rain or no rain at all, or? So I think I saved probably my favorite question for you for last. This one's a little bit different maybe than what most people think about in Spain, but it's something that I've been dying to speak specifically with a real estate lawyer about this in Spain. So in the US, there's a fairly common practice called seller financing, basically where the seller of the property extends a mortgage more or less to the buyer of their own property over like 10 to 15 years, like not a 30-year mortgage, but something a little bit shorter of a time frame. Is that possible, or does it even happen here in Spain?
To be honest, I have checked everywhere for this. Because you're not the first person that asked me this. Actually, the last time it was an American client. So a U.S. citizen, he was like, yeah, well, Alejandro, you know what? You can do this. I know you can. Like back at home, we do this. And I was like, but not here. I mean, I've checked everywhere. Where I told you, remember when I told you that we become like detectives? I became a detective just for that. And we've never heard of a case like that, like where a seller just feel like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna lend you some money. No, because over here, you have so many the mortgage brokers. That's a big thing over here in Spain, at least, where they will charge you, I don't know, between 2,000, 3,000 euros, depending on the complexity of your profile, let's call it. And they will charge you 2,000 to 3,000 euros, and they will find you a mortgage. I don't know how they do it, because I have clients that they have been like, I don't know, in over 30 different agencies, and they get a no. But then, well, these guys, they do this for a living, right? So they always manage to get a mortgage somehow. So this is why maybe this is my guess, that because of how the mortgage brokers are here in Spain, and I don't know how, but they always get it. Like they always get one for you.
So there's almost no need from the buyer's end. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, in the U.S., there's tons of mortgage brokers in the U.S. There's all these different options, but it's something that even in, I was talking with my parents about this, in the late 80s, early 90s, it wasn't really well known all over the United States, but in Michigan, where I'm from, they call it a land contract, and people started doing them. I think from the seller's standpoint, they loved it because they said, well, yeah, because if you don't pay, I get my house back. So they didn't mind at all. But yeah, I think now it's confirmed. I've talked to a few different agents. I've asked the same question too. They all look at me like, I don't know what you're saying, Chris. And now I think it's confirmed because Alejandro, the detective, has confirmed it. It doesn't exist in Spain.
I mean, wow. Chris, maybe that's something that we, you and I, like between Cheap Property Spain and Lexidy, can start. Like maybe start helping the sellers. Like, hey, because what you just mentioned is very interesting. Because if they don't pay, I just get the house back.
Yeah, as long as it's legally allowed as long as there's a way to legally enforce it in the country, I don't see why people wouldn't go for it. It's not for everyone, but there's a sliver of the market that would want it for sure.
Yeah. we can talk that. We can talk about that maybe later.
All right, great. Notes for next time. Awesome. Fantastic, Alejandro. Thank you so much for giving us all this insight. I think it was very helpful, and I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you.
Me too, Chris. It was lovely speaking with you. Thank you for inviting me to this episode, and hopefully we can have more in the future.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing on YouTube or following us wherever you're listening. Also, leave us a like or a review. It really helps the show. Lastly, if you're not a member already, consider subscribing to our weekly newsletter. Every week, I spend hours sifting through thousands of listings to find the best homes for sale in Spain under 200,000 euros. The newsletter includes all the properties I find with the original links to the listing and the seller's contact info. Visit cheappropertyspain.com/newsletter to learn more.